It was put on my heart early on that I'm going to have to step into a fatherhood role kind of at a more unorthodox way.
Being a dad, being his dad, has absolutely changed my life, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
You chose fatherhood. No matter what journey you're on as a father, I think that's what we're called to do every day.
Thanks for joining us today on Dad Speak, where real dads share real stories about their fatherhood journeys. Today's show is brought to you by Beaumont Productions, videos that grow your business and reach your community.
Thank you for both being here. I know your guys' schedules are very busy. It's, both working full time. Obviously, both have young kiddos. So, appreciate you guys being here. Who are you? Kids' age? What do you do? And what's your kid's favorite food?
Oof.
Yes. Oof is. I'll shoot over to Jessie first, and then I'll go to Kory.
I might need you to ask those questions again. But who am I? My name's Jessie. My kid's name is Kylan. He is actually turning 2 on June 22nd, so we have a birthday coming up for him here shortly. What I do, I work full-time, like you said, for PLS Logistics, just a logistics company based out of Pennsylvania. And then we just have a branch here in St. Louis. So working management for them over there, sales management for them, and then also in the spare time, trying to become a pastor for a church that my wife and I are trying to plant downtown in our nonprofit area.
Yes,
so.
And your guys' partnership is with the organization Urban Reach, right?
Urban Reach, yeah.
Okay.
Urban Reach.
Amazing.
Yep. So, but yeah, other than that, just being a father, being a husband.
Okay, and Kylan's favorite food?
Kylan's favorite food, chicken nuggies. Chicken nuggies. He's a big nuggies guy. French fries close second.
Okay.
If we're talking restaurant, then we're going, it'd have to be like a Texas Roadhouse roll. The boy eats probably like 7 or 8 of those, yeah.
Bread is life.
Bread definitely is life, but you throw in a Texas Roadhouse roll, it's game over.
So here's the key question. Do you have an air fryer?
An air fryer?
An air fryer.
I do not.
Okay.
Oof. You got to get one, man.
I need an air fryer. Is that
Chicken nuggets
you need one.
And fries and an air fryer, game changer.
Okay.
I mean...
Typically, I'm a microwave guy,
Oh, I mean, it's okay to nuke them. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah. In a pinch, you want it, but air frying chicken nuggets...
Change his life.
Dude,
it's going to change his life.
It's incredible. You're not even going to want to give Kylan any chicken nuggets. You're just going to want to eat them all yourself.
You've been selling them short, man. With
Boys, I might want to hold this one off. I might want to hold off the air fryer until he's like 4 or 5 and then just blow his mind, right? Like,
that's true.
Open him up to a whole new realm of chicken nuggets.
Of cuisine.
Cuisine, yeah. Fine dining.
Fine dining, yes. Fine dining.
Dino nugs.
Yes. Oh, great. Kory, who are you? What do you do? Child's name and favorite food.
Okay, so I'm Kory Beck. For my full-time job, I am a quality engineer. Actually, for Nike, we have a manufacturing plant here in St. Louis. So I typically work a little bit of a different schedule. I work Thursday through Sunday versus the standard Monday through Friday. Kind of works with the other things that I do. My son's name is Carson. He's 5. He'll be 6 in September. And let's see, outside of work, I'm also a professional MMA fighter. I coach jiu-jitsu. So yeah, life gets hectic. There's a lot going on.
Yes,
every day is a full day, but I'm super grateful for all the opportunities I have in that. And I would say Carson's favorite food, like undeniably, is steak. That kid can eat steak every day. I'm talking breakfast, lunch, dinner, whenever you cook it. He even has, he prefers it, medium rare, he has his little thing. He said, "Hey, Dad, I want it red with the juice." That's what he wants.
Knows what he's doing.
Wow.
He knows what he's doing.
I mean, that's an expensive...
It is, but...
Thankful for my chicken nuggets over here.
I eat a lot of steak myself. So
okay.
It's one of those where you buy a steak, you cut some off for him, you eat some, he eats some, and everybody's happy.
So does he have a preferred cut?
Ooh.
Oh, I mean,
I mean, now we're getting into it.
Now
But
it could get really pricey.
I don't think he does, but me personally, I'm a New York strip kind of guy. So
Okay.
That's like that's my steak every time.
Got
so
it.
He just eats. What I
okay,
eat.
that's not. I mean, and from like a price perspective,
Not
it's not like a ribeye or like a
breaking
filet
the
mignon. You know what I
No,
mean? It's
no,
not that bad.
Not crazy.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, that's fine dining right there.
Yeah.
The kid has taste though. I mean, especially if he's
Yeah.
asking like medium rare.
Yeah.
If you're gonna cook a steak.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, he's just like a meat kind of kid. Like, we're talking steak, shrimp, chicken, like whatever it is. Like, he could eat meat and fruit and like survive on that for the rest of his life and be totally satisfied.
Yeah, dude, I thought berries were expensive.
Yeah.
Like Charlie loves berries.
Yeah.
But steak is a whole different realm. Like that's just like
Yeah.
Different ball game.
No, but I love it, right?
Yeah.
Because how old is he now?
He's 5. He'll be
5.
6 in September.
Okay, so he's not like, when he probably gets like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
It's like he's probably edging on eating his own steak.
Oh, yeah.
But for now, it's
Yeah.
like
we go through spurts, growth spurts, and it's like, dude,
Okay.
like I bought one steak for both of us. We got to split it. Like,
If we're on New York strips already, then he'll be on filet mignons by the time it's 12 too. So
next
start
interview,
saving up now.
it's gonna be filet mignon, with
Yeah.
some garlic butter on it, some compound butter.
Absolutely.
No. Was he always like that, or was it just kind of did it just progress?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, like I like the idea of like leading by example, right? So like the nutrition piece of it. As we go through phases, right? Sometimes you eat some crap, just like anybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
But I typically just try to make like whatever I'm eating and give that to him, and through that process, he's been able to really just eat what I eat, which means a lot of protein, fruits. We aren't a big vegetable type of. Duo,
Just carnivore diet.
but the animal based diet,
Okay,
with some snacks. We love our ice cream, all that kind of stuff. So he really just eats what I eat, and it's been like that for quite some time.
Yeah, because you're an athlete, so you're clean eating pretty much all the time. Because you can get called for an MMA fight in 3 weeks before you're entering fight camp immediately almost.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense. But that's kind of nice too. Unfortunately, I don't have the discipline to eat like that all the time. I think you have to.
Yeah,
right? Like you're kind of
let's be
forced
honest
to.
though, like I'm not perfect, and honestly, what a lot of people miss is like as an athlete, sometimes you just need calories, right? And it's hard to always get enough calories from just healthy
Clean
food,
eating.
Yeah.
right? So like after a hard day, sometimes it's like, hey, me and Carson will go and like let's say we go to Culver's, we'll get a burger and fries and some ice cream, and then like it's kind of our little like dad and son date night, and we get to eat some good food, and it has a purpose when it's actually intentional.
So share, if you can, your journey to fatherhood. How what that's been like for you guys. You guys are in a room together for a reason, right?
Yeah.
We shared a little bit of that. But your story, tell in your terms. What does that journey look like for you?
A lot to unpack there. How much time we got?
as much as you need. Yeah.
So we'll just start from the fatherhood side of things rather than my journey leading up to fatherhood, and then dive in a little bit more. But so my journey, just like pretty much everybody else's, one thing I always say is like experiences are like fingerprints. They can be similar, but no two are the exact same. So my journey is definitely different. I'm sure somebody out there has one similar, but I met my wife that I'm married to now 2 years ago. This coming September was our first date. It was about a month and a half after she had our son, Kylan, and her testimony is so powerful, but it's hers to share. So I won't go into too many of the weeds there, but I came into Kylan's life, that September. She made me work for it, which what I loved about her. Didn't let me meet him for a little bit of time. We were dating. We were having a lot of fun. I knew I was going to marry her within probably 2 weeks of knowing her, and after a couple of dates. And then time kind of goes on. I get introduced to Kylan, and, early on, it was my goal not to be like too overbearing or ask for anything that she was uncomfortable with, but I knew I'd be in his life for a long time. So as, dates progressively started getting better and better, we both were on the understanding that we were going to get married to each other. We ended up getting engaged. That was last March in 2023. So just about 7 months after we started dating. And then we got married in September of last year. So almost a year to the day of our first date. So my journey into fatherhood was that, but from very early on, again, whole other story for a whole other group of people besides myself, but Kylan's birth father just hasn't been in the picture pretty much since the beginning. So it was, something that was put on my heart to be with this woman. It was put on my heart early on that I'm going to have to step into a fatherhood role kind of at a more unorthodox way. But since the beginning, and since that was the understanding, and since, God had put it on my heart that I was going to be leading this family and leading him and leading my wife, there's really no questions needing to be asked after that. So I jumped into fatherhood head first a few months into us dating, and ever since then, it's just been an amazing ride. So that's kind of my journey to fatherhood and where we're at right now. But he's my little guy. Been my best friend kind of ever since we both made that decision to move forward together.
Yeah, and it's powerful because, you chose fatherhood. I mean, like, and I would hope that most people do. But I mean, you have the option of saying yes or saying no, right? Like as you're dating, you're experiencing fatherhood and you're dating a woman at the same time. Yeah. So for me, that's, powerful to hear and know is that you actively chose that. And I think no matter what journey you're on as a father, I think that's what we're called to do every day. We have to choose to be dads, because it's hard. It really is hard. There are times that it's just, it makes your day. When you see your child do something, it could be the most random thing, like a wave or, him saying your name or, dad. It's just like these moments are so sweet and so special. But man, there are a lot of moments, especially when they're younger, that are just, man, it's hard. Exactly. It's very, very hard. Yeah. How about you, Kory?
So the first part of it is a little bit complicated, so I'll spare you guys that. But very similarly, like, I made the choice as well. And I was relatively young when, I had Carson. I was 23. I just graduated college, didn't have a job. I was just training, wanted to fight full time. And, his mom and I had gotten together. And then I wasn't aware of some things before that. And it was interesting because I just had a fight. I had an amateur title fight, and I lost that fight, and actually got the first time I got TKO'd, right? So right after that fight was when I found out that she was pregnant with Carson. So wow, roller coaster of emotions. I had just lost a fight for the first time in a long time. I was probably concussed at the time, and I was just told that she was pregnant. And there's a lot of backstory to it, but Carson wasn't biologically mine, but her and I were together at that time. And she was also living in California at the time. So
I didn't know that.
So she was flying back home the very next day. So roller coaster of emotions. And, I honestly don't know if I made that decision exactly that night. But pretty much for me, like I knew, like, hey, I could just like run away from this, or, at the time I thought I was going to be with her for an extended period of time. And so I was like, okay, I can either choose this now or walk away and wonder, like, what if? Yeah. And I ultimately decided, like, let's do this. And I knew that the biological father at the time, like, he wasn't going to be in the picture. And not that I felt like I had a duty, but, like, I believe, like, every child needs a father. And I was in the position to do that. And the way that I saw my future at that time, it was like, okay, let's do it. So I was young, again, didn't actually have a real job at the time. Found out that Destiny was pregnant. And, we just went for it. And unfortunately, now we are no longer together. So again, that, kind of complicates the whole situation. But I've been Carson's dad since he was born up until this point, and there's no stopping now. And, you could think all of the what ifs of, what if I made this decision? What if I made that decision? Whatever. But what I do know is that, like, I'm grateful to even, number one, have the opportunity to do that. Number two, I made the decisions for a reason, and there's never any like looking back. And number 3, like being a dad, being his dad has absolutely changed my life, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
You said there's no stopping this now.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit more.
I mean, that's the thing in life. Everybody like tries to make a decision or like analyze a decision, or they look back and they're like, well, what if I did this? It's like ultimately, like, we're here, we make a decision. Once we make that decision, we have to be okay with that. Like, no matter what comes next, no matter what comes in the future, like, you make a decision, like, there's no going back and changing it. Like, don't think about that. Adapt and overcome with the things that come your way. And that's kind of just like the philosophy that I took. Like, hey, I'm making this decision. At this very moment, this is the right decision. This is the right decision for me. Even though things didn't turn out the way that I had thought they would, and, life didn't play out the way that, I expected it to, that's okay. Like, I made that decision, and I stood behind that decision, right?
Yeah.
And as a man, that's no matter what decision you make, like, you need to be able to be decisive and stand behind the decisions you make. And there's no point in looking back and thinking about it any other way, because you can't do anything to change it. And, most of the time you get a lot of blessings from, the decisions that you make, whether they're good or bad or whatever. You get to choose what you define that decision as.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's like more than choosing. It's like, it's owning fatherhood.
Yeah.
That's what that is, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're making the decision not only to, you can make a choice. It's like, I'm going to go, you're at a fork in the road, I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right. And you can go left and you say, this is my choice.
Yeah.
But for me, I see a lot of men and women, no matter if it's about fatherhood, about something else, but especially with fatherhood, where it's, keep asking what if, what if I did this, what if I did that, right? And they're still on the road. You could still be on the road and start questioning, but I think to own it is to say, not only did I go left, but everything that's on this road ahead of me, I'm going to own that. The good things and the bad things. So what does that look like? I think that's a good question, is trying to understand what owning fatherhood looks like on a daily basis, especially when you're choosing over and over again. There is that one choice, right? Where it's like, maybe it didn't happen overnight, especially for both of you, where it's like, all right, like, maybe it did, right? Like, this is happening, but you have to choose over and over again. You have to own it. What does that look like for you?
I mean, for me, it is a choice. Like you said, it kind of can be broken down. Like Kory was saying, it can just be broken down to that one choice. You wake up, you make it consciously. Eventually, it'll get to the, unconscious, conscious level, right? Like, that's how I kind of look at fatherhood for myself. I'm big when it comes to those 4 levels of consciousness, right? So if I don't know what I don't know, and that's, I think, where everybody starts out at. But then as long as you continue to make the decisions and the choices that lead to, choosing fatherhood or choosing what's best for your son or daughter, for your wife, for your family, I think that eventually, even though those decisions can get hard, eventually it'll get to a point where you don't even have to think about it. It's just something that you innately or naturally do. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me when it comes to fatherhood. It's like, they're early on, even still to this day, nobody's perfect. We all lose our temper. We're human beings, right? But that time in between losing your temper and showing love, or losing your temper and teaching, or losing your temper and actually apologizing, even if your son's 2 years old, 2 months old, but making that decision and those choices, that's the one that I've been working on the most right now, trying to get to that unconscious consciousness level. Is like, he doesn't understand why I'm mad, so like, let's work on the ways to get out of that. And then eventually, hopefully, when he is at an age where he can understand those things, it's just a natural instinct for me. I don't have to think about, all right, Jessie, that was frustrating, but like, chill out a little bit. I just chill out naturally. Right. Everything with fatherhood with me can kind of come back to that. A lot of my life can, honestly, but it's just getting those decisions, those choices to that unconscious consciousness level.
Yeah. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
Is that the quote, right? So, I think no one is, I don't know if anyone's naturally a father. I think I read something and it said only 48% of men felt that they were fully prepared to become a father. 48, that's less than half.
Right.
But that's fair, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
fair. I don't know if anyone's fully prepared. Good on those folks, you know, who in that 48%. But I feel like, you know, for a lot of men, myself included, it's just like you never feel prepared. And even if you do, there are just so many unexpected things that happen. And hopefully it does for me. You know, it's hard to look back and, you know, see the forest through the trees sometimes, because sometimes it's just, you know, one day at a time. Sometimes it's 1 hour at a time, you know, or it's, you know, it's challenging. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's, you know, for me, where it's nice to have a spouse to say,
100%.
hey, like, you did really well in this situation. Like, you just handled this so well. And it doesn't have to be a spouse. It could be a parent. It could be a brother, sister, anyone in your friend. But someone to, like, look back and say, as a father, you used to do this, and now you're doing this, and I recognize that, and I see that. And man, that goes so far. And I hope that that's what this show does for people. You know, is affirms those fathers to say, you know what, like, just take a step back. Right? Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, you know, you have a short temper, short patience. We all do sometimes. But hopefully that short temper and short patience, instead of it happening twice a day, 3 times a day, happens once a day. And then instead of once a day, it's once every other day. Right. You know, and over time, you know, it becomes hopefully habitual.
Well, and I think to add on to that, not only like realizing, I think that's actually what I was going to say, is like realizing that, hey, I have a temper. How many dads are able to admit that openly to another father, right? Even if it lasts 30 seconds, it's still a temper, right? It still should probably be worked on. So a big thing for me is like, and that's just when it comes to manhood, quote unquote, fatherhood, whatever you want to say, it's definitely something, you know, I'm excited to see where this goes with everything that you're doing and all that, because there needs to be an open dialogue about, like, yeah, I wouldn't say that I have a temper to just anybody, but the fact of the matter is I think we all do to a certain extent. And it's like the admitting of where you might have a fault, even though you don't want to, because it's uncomfortable. As men, we get beat up left, right, and center from a lot of different angles sometimes. And you know, innately, again, whether it be right or wrong, we're kind of always taught to internalize that. So it's like being able to talk about that, have a dialogue about it, but also say, like, it's okay to have that. And I'm going to work on getting better past that. So I think that's a lot of the process.
There's a lot of concepts that, you know, you guys have both said, and I think as far as, like, whether it's a temper, whether it's whatever, like you said, like, the biggest thing is you have to have awareness to what you're doing before you can change anything, right? Because if you don't have that awareness, then how are you going to get better? And then going back to what you were saying, right? Like, nobody is perfect, and we have to take a step back and, like, see how far we've come, and that just, like, reinforces the whole idea of, like, progress over perfection, right? Like, I want to make sure that I'm, like, making progress, and, like, I don't have to be perfect. Like, I'm going to make mistakes, but I have to be aware of the mistakes that I make so I can own them, right? And I think, like, a big thing that can help people, you know, build that awareness is kind of, I like to look at it, I'm a big data guy, I like to look at it as, like, I'm collecting data on myself, right? Because if I don't have any data, what do I have to look back on to actually change, right? So, like, and I do that through journaling. So I journal every day, you know, when I've been in the situation where I've dealt with, like, okay, like, I feel like I'm quick to anger, right? And that was kind of one of the main reasons why I started journaling, is to see, like, okay, what are the things that are causing me to be quick to anger? And then now the journal is, like, also my pause. It's forcing me to pause. And then what conscious decision can I make from here moving forward so that I can actually change it? So, like, being able to realize, be aware, realize what do I need to change, understand that I'm focusing on progress, not perfection, and then collecting, you know, data on myself so I can have, like, actionable items to put in place to actually make the changes that I want to. So when I do take a step back in 6 months or a year from now, I can truly see the improvements that I've made.
Yeah, because, you know, there's beauty in seeing imperfection as well. You know, imperfection defines us as human beings, but I think it's, like, the defining role of a father. It's like, we're going to make mistakes. But I think being aware of those mistakes and moving forward, that's what matters, right? Without saying, I'm, one day I'm going to be this father that is incredible. I hope that, all of us see that we're incredible fathers now,
Right.
regardless of where we're at, right? It's
Yeah.
like no matter where you're at, like the fact that we are aware and that we are trying and that we are being intentional, that is more than enough.
Yeah.
When there's studies on, what children, grown men and grown women think about their fathers, it's oftentimes time related. Like, what did your father do? He spent time with me. My father tried. It wasn't my father did this thing exactly right.
Yeah.
It was the moment of intentionality. So I think it's incredible that I think you have journaling. I think as that look back, I think I could probably relate to that.
Yeah.
On a consistency, it's more like every other day for me.
Yeah.
And I'd like it to be every day, but I mean that's the whole point. Is like, what are we doing as men and as people who want to grow? What are we doing intentionally to become the men and the fathers that our sons need us to be?
Yeah. And I think like to break all of that down to like one simple phrase, in order to be that man, we have to remember, lead by example, right?
That's good.
Because your kids are always watching, whether they can talk, whether they can, do whatever, no matter what stage they're at, they are always watching.
Yeah.
And they will emulate your behavior. So if you lead by example, you can often see it in your children, right? And just it's so important to be able to lead by example, because then like that gives you a why, right? Like why am I doing the things that I'm doing? I know that I need to lead by example if I want my children to be, the people that I want them to be.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
That's good.
No, I was just going to add, like, I love the data thing, just to point that out. Like, I'm not necessarily a journaler. Words are tough.
Journalist, yeah.
But, no, I mean, what I can point to that does have a similarity to how I go about things is the data. I'm very analytical.
Yeah.
Not everything in this world is about numbers. But a couple of things that I always say, just mantras that I have is numbers never lie, people do.
Yeah.
And also know the score to win the game. Like, I got to know what I'm going up against if I'm going to win. If you don't know what the score is, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like just talking about how important the role of a father is and stuff that I see, like, with anybody. Because sometimes you choose to be a dad. Sometimes you're a biological dad. Sometimes you might have somebody that's just really looking up to you as a father figure in their life. And you try and step in for them like that. But I, growing up, revolved all of my life essentially around the statistics of fatherless children and how important that is. And it's like, if I don't, do my part to get better every single day, then not only for my kids or anything like that, but just also anybody that I come into contact with, even downtown at Urban Reach, it's like, if I don't do my part to try and be, that father figure, then the statistics against kids in fatherless homes are
it's insane.
Detrimental.
Yeah.
It's so detrimental.
Like we have a duty, right? Like whether you want it or not, like you have a duty as a man, as a father, to give back to the generations that are coming, whether it's your own children, whether it's kids around you. Like you were saying, it's just somebody that looks up to you. Like that's, whether it's your calling or whatever, it's still your duty as a man to make a difference on the generations that are coming through.
Yeah.
And that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that should be encouragement to everybody. It's like, I feel like as men, we don't really think about that too often.
Yeah.
But it's like, what better reward than to have a young man, young woman say, like, that's who I looked up to, right? Like, as far as earthly possessions, earthly prizes go, like, that's worth more than anything in my mind, is to have a kid look up to me and say, that's who I look up to. That's who's been there for me. That's who didn't let me go backslide or didn't let me go down X, Y, and Z route. And I think that, that's the encouragement that I like to give dads is like, you have a duty, and that duty is one of the most important things that anybody can do on this earth.
Yeah.
In its own right, because women and mothers have that, in their own right and in their own way. But speaking on father's behalf, like, it's insanely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those encouraging moments happen on a day-to-day. We see our sons moving toward hopefully the men that we want them to be, and I'm sure as they get older, they'll form and be their own selves. But I'm a big believer in nurture. What are we showing our sons, through action, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we practicing for them? And then how are we guiding them too? So I think for me, I try to think about encouraging moments that happen on a daily basis. I feel like sometimes they're so small.
Yeah.
Sometimes they really are small. And I'm at the stage with Charlie where he's so young. He's a year and a half. Right. So like I still consider myself a new father. So I have loads to learn and I'll continue to learn for the rest of my life. But, for me, those encouraging moments come in just these little actions, when he like learns how to wave, and he's like waving by at people, it's just like, I don't know, for me, I'm like, yeah, like you are becoming someone who, like when you wave bye to someone, it's a sign of, it's so small, like it's cute, right? You see this like little hand waving, like don't get me wrong, the cuteness is there. But for me, as a man looking at another future man, I'm saying you are learning how to greet people and how to say bye to people. Like that is a critical step, and you learning. And so if I break it down on why I'm encouraged and why I'm happy, it makes a lot of sense, you know. And I'm curious to know if you guys have had those same experiences, those small moments where you've experienced that encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of to tie in what you were talking about earlier of getting feedback from your significant other or whatever. I don't always, I do get that from certain people in my life, but because, it's just me and Carson a lot of times, I don't always get that. However, I do find it in these small moments where I feel like encouraged of like, oh, he is like becoming like a man, a little man. He is like growing as a human. And like one thing, that I've really noticed that in is kind of going back to the whole like the anger thing is, as a child, you have a lot of emotions, right? Sometimes he gets really angry and all of that. And if I can manage to lead by example and stay calm in those moments and like, talk through it with him and be intentional, then a lot of times, like later on in the day, he'll come up to me and be like, hey, Dad, I'm sorry for, being upset earlier or like yelling or like doing whatever it is. And it's like, oh, like he learns, like he knows, like, so, again, as a man, you got to lead by example. Like if you lose your cool, apologize, You might not think that it's necessarily important, but it is because they see that. And then you realize through these small moments in a time where like they're frustrated, just like we all get, we have to understand and give them some compassion too, because they're frustrated and they don't even know how to manage all the emotions. But at the end of the day, he can come back and say, hey, Dad, I'm sorry for doing that earlier. And like, that building that emotional intelligence and recognizing that there's been growth there is absolutely like a beautiful small moment that I've seen, not just recently, but it's become like more in front of me. And I've really been encouraged with that.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. For me, it's a couple of things. It's everything you just said for sure. It's the little moments, kind of like you said, Jake, whenever they're learning how to do something that almost kind of requires a little bit EQ or emotional intelligence. That's cool to see, like, all right, you're actually growing. You're not just saying French fries or nuggies. Like you're saying, I'm sorry because you hit somebody or took a toy, or you're saying thank you when somebody gives something to you. Those moments are always cool to see that emotional intelligence continue to develop. But the two that stick out to me, one's a recurring every single night. The other one that just really made me happy to be a father and just kind of, I always tell people, like with my faith, it continues to be more and more solidified every single day based on what I encounter and things that you just can't explain away, almost in a supernatural type of presence. But my mom passed like 4 years ago, far before I met Kylan, far before I met Savannah, and we were at my aunt's this past Christmas, and there's a picture of my mom when she was like 8 years old, and he points at it and says, Nanny. And I'm like, wow. It's just things like that those are the type of moments where Incredible. I'm like, oh man, I'm in the right spot. Yeah. I'm supposed to be here. Yes. And then the other one for me is every night. He loves going to bed nowadays, right? The hour, the time always changes. But he gets excited. And it's that lead by example. It's that we've already talked about, like, how do you want to raise your children? And there can be a million different ways to go about that. But something that we consciously started doing with him and now he gets excited about is like, Kylan, you ready to go night-night? And he goes, pray Jesus. And so he'll like stick his hand up in his crib and grab our hands. And we just start saying things we're thankful for. And it's like milk, toast, pancakes.
I love it.
And then we go through like the whole family. We go through every food he likes. We go through all his toys, his movies, animals.
It's a long bedtime routine.
It's a long bedtime routine. You know,
I love it.
A nighttime story probably would be quicker. But it's those moments where it's like, all right, again, I call it being in the pocket. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm not trying to outrun the plan for my life. I'm not falling behind it. In those moments, I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's what encourages me with it.
So what'd you say to a dad, let's say who's listening or who's watching, that is in need of encouragement? What would you say to him?
I think the biggest thing is just remember, like, nobody's perfect. Like, you know, we're striving for progress over perfection. Be able to own the stuff that you do, the decisions you make, your faults, your insecurities, and make progress so you don't pass those things on to your children in a negative way. And, you know, ultimately, nobody's perfect. Just keep trying. Give it some effort. Be intentional.
Yeah.
And everything will work out as long as you show up and keep doing what you know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely echoing that as well. And then just one thing that I personally believe, again, everybody has their personal beliefs, but one thing that I personally believe is if you're needing encouragement in that area, or you're falling back, or you're feeling like you're behind, you know, it doesn't hurt to just get down on your hands and knees and ask God to reveal Himself to you, show you what His will is for your life, and then that answer won't come in something supernatural. 9 times out of 10, it might come in a conversation.
Yeah.
Heck, it might come from you do that, and then the next time you turn this episode on or turn on the next episode, somebody has the exact same story that you have. It's like God uses people around us to kind of affirm us or to give us the encouragement we need 9 times out of 10. Heck, it can come in nature. It could come in little moments like Kylan saying Nana to a picture of my mom when she was a kid.
Yeah.
It can come in very little moments, but first and foremost, I'd say that, like, whether you're a believer or not a believer, I encourage everybody to always just ask God to reveal Himself and help you and encourage you, and just see where that takes you. Past that, it's up to you. But then the second thing, you know, again, nobody is perfect. There is no one right way to do this. Then, like we talked about earlier, nobody's ever prepared for this, right? Like 48% of people might say they are, but I guarantee they might be lying. They probably cheated on some tests growing up. So I would say, like, just always have a good core group of people around you, whether that is a spouse, whether that is a girlfriend, whether that is, you know, a mother, a father, a sister, a cousin, whoever it is, a coworker. Have somebody that you can lean into and ask for encouragement from. So you can tell you're struggling too.
Absolutely.
And that'd be my best advice.
Yes, because people often see things that we don't.
Yeah,
you know, said forest through the trees, and you know, I think I would add on to that, and I would say to a dad who's in need of encouragement is we see you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, is you are seen.
Yeah,
and you know, and it's not oftentimes in the people who think you see you. You know, I'll be in the grocery store and I'll just see a dad just rocking out.
Yeah.
You know, just you know, getting Pop-Tarts for his kiddo, and they're just you know, they're just being in the ordinary.
Yeah.
And there's power in the ordinary.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many powerful moments that I could think of as a child where my father in these ordinary moments just made my day. And that's what I remember.
Yeah.
You know, it's the big vacations are nice, but it's in the ordinary moments that oftentimes is where the magic of fatherhood happens. And as a dad, no one thanks you or sees you for those ordinary moments. You know, so I would add, you are seen and you are loved. And you know, look for those encouraging moments because they exist.
Yeah,
they definitely do.
I think one thing that I would like to add is, like you said, like, you are seen, like, you are valued. Know
That's
that
good.
like you play a part, and just show up, give your best effort, and never stop learning, because that's how you're going to get better.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So one last question is hypothetical here. Okay, your sons pick up their new iPhone 15 years from now. Okay, because they're all older and they're allowed to have phones, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's holographed on. And they're like, Dad went on a show and talked about fatherhood X amount of years ago. 60 seconds, you're talking straight to them. What do you say?
I think the first thing I would say is, I love you. I'm proud of you. Whatever it is that you are doing now, whatever it is that you dream to do, whatever it is that you want to get out of life, like, never stop chasing that. You can always do it no matter what obstacles you face, no matter the struggles that you have. There's always a way forward, and you have to find your own path because it's never going to be the same as anyone else's. And through that path, you will find out who you are, and you will better know yourself, better know the other people around you, and ultimately, like, understand that you are loved, share that love with others, and be grateful for the opportunities that you have, because you're never promised another day.
Absolutely. That's good.
Man, I'm an emotional dude. I'm an emotional wreck all the time, so this might get weird. I've already teared up like 3 times. No, what I would tell him is, just say I'm proud of him. You know, his circumstances growing up are probably going to be a little different than most people's, and that I'm just so thankful that God brought me into his life and gave me the opportunity to be the father that he deserved and that he needed. And just that never lose hope, never lose faith. Things happen that we don't always understand. And the most important thing is that, you know, I always am going to try to be better each and every day. And then actually the most important thing, that's the second most important thing. The most important thing is never ignore a phone call from your mom, and always tell her you love her.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Love it. Whew. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you taking the time to be here. And for those listening, we'll see you in a couple weeks for a long form. And we'll be back here. Dad Speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.